In this episode, I want to do manually what the ProjectionCam does for us. And the ProjectionCam lives here in the window. And when we call this up, we get this interface here. And we do it all manually. And when we have done it manually, we know maybe why I say sometimes ProjectionCam to it, because it's very productive. And that's the main part of it. It does stuff for us very quick and easy. And so we can focus on doing our art. Okay, let's get started. Is there any wrong with the picture? No. Okay, so we can leave it. Now, the idea is here, of course, to find first where we have to patch something. And it sneaks here out of the backside from the box. And to make that more clear, if you have skipped one or two tutorials in the series so far, this box is projected to the floor, of course, because the camera can only capture what is in front of it, not what is behind objects. And so we have to get here some different textures in it. And we have discussed it, so I don't want to go there again. What we need to explore here is, of course, the camera animation. And that means when we take a look here, in this position, we had our camera set up and we started here. That is not needed. We can start anywhere. But what I want to explore here is, of course, how the camera moves. And when we see exactly where we get the most problems here, and the problem is, of course, what shines from the floor through, that gives away our little secret here with one image camera mapping. When we have noticed that, we can go, of course, just and create a new camera, which gives me then exactly a camera here on this position where this camera was. And of course, normally I would say we don't need more than this camera here finally unveils in terms of problems. The truth is always, changes are always doable. And so when we go only with what we urgently need, any little change might destroy all our efforts here, or at least renders it not so useful. So the idea is, of course, that we take a look where the animation goes, and if it goes during a change more to the left side again, that would be no problem. So the problem would exist if it goes more to the right side. And so I call here now this camera a little bit to this side, and to see what happens, I do this here, of course, with the camera active. And so I can see here a little bit more of the problem than the maximum camera at the moment would unveil. This is maybe a good start point. What we want to do is to paint over this area here. And then when we have a nice covering of this area, maybe with parts of the surroundings here, stamp tool, then we have our secret here. And it looks maybe fantastic. Of course, the whole floor, by the way, needs, of course, something similar to the box. It has no geometry in the back, so all the parallax that I would have during the camera move in reality is not given here. But this is only for a demonstration here, so I leave it flat here. This is not my ideal, of course. So the first step that we need to do is, of course, done already. We have here a camera, and I would strongly suggest always put something in front that gives you an idea what you have here in terms of objects, so you do not mess it up just by thinking, oh, that's a nice camera, we can animate it, and then everything is gone. So naming conventions is the first step. Put it on a layer and lock it is my suggestion. There's, of course, a protection tag here inside of Cinema 4D tags. But to be honest, in the moment you put the camera under a null object and you move the null object, the camera moves with it. There's not so much protection given. And it's always something possible. The best way is in the layer and lock it. That gives really the best protection for it. Okay, so let's get started. And that means we need to have this camera here on. We check out again is that the whole area that we need? Maybe we don't need this and on the left and on the right. So there could be a little bit adjustment possible. I move this here around and I go a little bit closer here even. And keep in mind, whatever you do later, the closer the camera gets and the higher the resolution of that patch is, the more there's a danger that you have maybe different resolutions between the patch and the background. So if we have done all of that, we have our camera active here because this is at the moment the camera where we shoot the scene. And when you recall what I said in earlier episodes, we have a camera in reality normally that shoots an image. Then we project it to the scene here inside, and the original object is replaced by a geometry. So when we do this only inside of Cinema 4D, we can set up, of course, a camera, render out a picture, that would be the picture taken with the camera in reality, render it, then manipulate it in Photoshop as far as we need that, and then bring it back, and this camera that was the render camera or the capture camera is then the projection camera. And we can add a new material to this object here, the plane in this case, and then we have pretty much what we would get from the projection man. And that's the whole thing. And again, I go here step by step, build up knowledge, build up ideas, and to give you a good base. And so I go here manually, even if that is not needed anymore, just to clear that point one more time. So let's get started with that. We need here, of course, a render settings, and we can go here to my render setting. In this case, I stay here in standard render just for the demo. If you have other ideas, use this, of course. The main idea is to have something similar to this background here and keep it exactly in the way you have set it up in the first place. If the background is 8-bit, stay in 8-bit. If the background is 32-bit, floating point, OpenEXR, and so on, my favorite, but not in this tutorial because I will build up here on speed and small file sizes. When you have in the background an HDRI, then use for the rendering here as well in HDRI. It would look horrible if you have the background in the highest quality, floating point, and maybe the highlights are really blooming out if you use depth of field, a shallow depth of field, of course. And then in the patch, you have everything clipped to 8 or 16-bit integer, where you have no super bright, no super whites, no values over 100%. That is a dead giveaway that you have patched, and it looks horrible. And you have to do it again. There is no way just to fix it with putting it in an OpenEXR, so it's just a container in that case. So keep an eye that you stay consistent with the same format and, if needed, the same color profile, and stay consistent then also in Photoshop with that. If you need to convert it into a different color profile, keep in mind that you convert it back after that. Okay, enough cautions here. So this would be here now the full frame size from the background picture. We can do this, but as I said, for the demonstration here, I will be a little bit more frugal. And so we do this, and we save this to a place where I want to have it. This would be here then a different folder. Let's do it here directly into that, and let's call it just patch for clarity. You should have better names with numbers and everything else. As I said, this is here just in JPEG because I've used in JPEG. It's only 8-bit and it has the smallest color profile possible, sRGB. This is nothing, really nothing. The whole package here, what I would suggest for production. JPEG has problems, 8-bit has problems, and sRGB is normally just when you want to post something on the web. Otherwise, stay in different color profiles. OpenEXR and no color profiles, or linear, whatever. Okay, so I think I have repeated myself now here once with that, but this is so important to me because I see more and more problems when this gets mixed up. This is pretty much all. Anti-aliasing, I should have a little bit, but not too much because we don't want to change too much here. But without, it might give some weird problems. Not too high, not too... And of course, the filter here, since release 14 or 13, we have different filters here. And don't use anything that has sharpening in it. Sharpening is something that gives values inside of the picture that has nothing to do with the color values finally. And it might happen that you have a very intense color correction finally on your material, and to have then in one part already sharpening inside, artificial sharpening, not deconvolution, that goes maybe really into the area of giveaway where the patch is. So don't use something that gives you a very crisp image to the cost of non-usability later. So keep it simple, keep it fast here in that area. Okay, so that's pretty much all. And let's render this. And so we get here this picture. And while it renders, I can tell already that the projection man would go now and open this in Photoshop. So another step that you don't have to do, but we do this all manually. So see you in Photoshop. So I stay here in Photoshop and have opened my little patch render. I start here immediately with my cloning work. And of course, it needs always a little bit more time than expected. And sometimes I go here back and forth, and I like normally, I think I said that before, to clone with less than 100%, so I have to go always twice over it, but I get nicer edges at all. For the quick and dirty, 100% is of course nice, and when you have a very soft edge, that can cause also some trouble. If you have a hard edge, that can cause trouble, and so on. I think you know that game. So here's the alpha channel, and I try to improve this here a little bit with some or different techniques. Just go one time around, and I will show you how I normally do this. I blur this, and the blur gives me on the edge a gray value, which I can then adjust very easily. Or I can go here just and see what I have done, adjust the alpha mask here a little bit, and I'm pretty much ready to go here. So little fixtures here. And on the end, I want to save this here, of course. And then I have a problem because it's now with an alpha channel. So I stay in Photoshop here, or I can split it up in JPEG and in 2 JPEGs, so to say. So back in Cinema, I close my render and I create a new material. This would be all done with the projection manager as assistant. I wouldn't have to care about this if I use the projection man in the right way. So in the luminance channel, I need to load that image, and it is now here in text, and that was the Photoshop file. I should split this up so I don't have any differences, but for this case here, it's just to show how it works. I need the alpha channel here, of course, that is inside of the Photoshop file, so I can drag this over to the alpha channel and it immediately applies to it. So we have our material, and let's call it here patch 1. And the patch 1 goes now on top of the plane here on the most right side, so it's on top of the other one. And it won't work here until I go to the Attributes Manager, set this up to Camera Mapping, drag my PCam Camera 2 in it, press the calculation, and there is my patch. And here I have some mistakes. I can patch this, of course, with the alpha channel, or I just say call it a day. But of course, I want to fix this. But first I have to figure out what it is finally. And my suspicion is it's the cardboard. The color looks pretty much like that. So I go to this material that I just have applied, go to selections here, and type in something that does not exist in the scene, an X, for example. I have no selection with an X, and it becomes immediately visible. So when I take this here out again, that could be any word, any number that you don't use. And see here, I haven't done my work very clearly, but I have texture here, but the alpha channel is now in the way. Normally I shouldn't have done this. I should have worked nicely, but of course, to show here what I have done, this is the best way. So I need to go here with pressing the X key, going into this and make this here just a little bit bigger. And what I normally like to do is to have always a border here that goes with the seam or so. So this would go here then, go a little bit inside, go with the flow, so to say, and save this, go back to Cinema, open this material, go here again, reload material, and I think I'm done here already. No problem here, except of course for that edge. But we look at the moment through the PCam. That was not the plan. The plan was to look through the animation camera. And so I go here in full frame mode. So, and take a look here. And this looks a little bit blurry here at the moment, because I have a smaller file here. That means first I have done something here, and I show you that. The material here has 5616 times 3744. And to make my point where I said match this, this is only 2808 times 1872. So this is not the quality, of course. It always is the one that renders that is right on the end. And this looks here already a little bit better. This is only the preview here. If I go here to illuminate to editor and increase the size here, I should get a little bit more quality here. But this is illusion. This is nothing that we will see in the final picture. What I see here is maybe more that my alpha channel is maybe okay, but I have some artifacts from my fast stamp work in it. And that's pretty much all. We wanted to have an option to move the camera without seeing the card box on the floor. I think that is done. In which quality? That is maybe a different animal. And here we can see it goes over this. That was not the plan, so tile off. So now we have a nice view here, because the tile would be now smaller based on the size as well. Okay, I think you get the idea how it works, and when you have a little bit more time for the patchwork, then everything works fine. Thanks for listening. Have fun with it. Bye bye.